started the countdown way too early. So I had to do the gibberish noises until it was complete. You know, we used to do, I don't know how far back, if you listen to any of the old stuff, back when we were like podcast exclusive, and I actually put the effort into the audio recordings, or the audio version of the episodes. We used to do this thing whenever Matt Squatch would come on, because he would always go, what did he say? He'd say, yeah, or something. Yeah, he said something like yeah or whatever. But what I did was I took all of his yeahs and I put them to that song, the yeah, yeah.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
And I put his thing in there, and I'd always get gigged because of that audio, because all of a sudden Jock Jams would come after me for the
the 10 cents, the nickel, the penny.
Yeah, they had to get their fraction of a penny for the plays per million that this show gets.
Tom, if you don't get that extra penny every time it's played, how do you get to Jock Jams 15?
Well, we may never.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. How many Jock Jams were there?
There was one. There was one true Jock Jams. I come from the church of the original Jock Jams.
Hold on. I wonder how many. If I put in, let's see, Jock Jams, I'm going to put in 10. Let's see if that happened.
You might be thinking of, now that's what I call music, or perhaps Kids Bop.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's what I am thinking. That is what it is.
That's what I'm saying. There's only one true Jock Jams. But then...
but it's so weird. How many were on Jock Jams? Because...
Hey, you. It was one song, basically. It was just one really long song.
Dude, check this out, right? I typed that into DuckDuckGo, Jock Jams 10, right? And a couple of videos come up. One is top 10 worst songs from Jock Jams.
Oh, that sounds like a lot.
Right, and then the other one is top 10 greatest songs from Jock Jams. So if there's a 10 greatest and a 10 worst, either there's 10 polarizing songs that cross both.
You know like what it is. I can already answer this. I already know what the real result is. It's there's two people who wrote these articles, right? One guy really likes Jock Jams. The other guy just hated Jock Jams. So like it's only guy. 10 songs. Like we're sitting here thinking reasonably there's 20 songs on the Jock Jams album. But like that's not Jock Jams was never about logic, right? Like
no.
So you've got one guy who hates Jock Jams, and he's like, here's the top 10. And he thought he was being clever. He's like, here's the top 10 worst Jock Jams out of all of them. And then the other guy equally thought he was being just as clever. He was like, here's the top 10 best Jock Jams. And the worst part, here's the plot twist. They're brothers. You know, we didn't know that until you dig a little bit.
Do you ever see Nicolas Cage in Adaptation? So it's the twin brothers, and they're both writers. You know, Nicolas Cage is the one who's Charlie Kaufman, and he's up his own ass, but and he's trying to write a book about, actress played by she's played by Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep wrote a book about orchids, and he's taking that on to make a major motion picture, right? And then there's the other Kaufman brother, also played by Nicolas Cage, who's a complete dork, and he's like, all right, so I made a horror movie where the guy chops off his own head, but he thought it was his brother and he's alive still, but they become friends again. And they like just the worst story you've ever heard, and it doesn't make any sense. And he's so excited and he's going to get that published, And
so
it's like two ends.
Is we need to see if we can hire Nicolas Cage to play
play both these guys,
the Jock Jams brothers.
Dude, you remember in like on MTV or even VH1, they would have the top 10 countdowns like over the weekend. Top 10 songs or top 10 videos this week or whatever it is.
I don't think I'm old enough to remember when MTV played music.
Oh, are you serious? Come on.
I was there for
I knew you were a Carson Daly.
TRL, yeah, total
love child. Yeah, exactly. Come on. I mean, I was too good for that, but still.
I was aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was too good for it. I don't know what you're talking about. But here's the thing. how long ago in your estimation was Jock Jams? Because here's the problem.
It was 1996.
At the very least, this article about the top 10 worst is from 2015. Okay.
Can you imagine hate brewing in your heart for a decade until you finally say, I need to put pencil to paper and I need to write about how I really felt about that abomination before God, Jock Jams. Like,
but dude, here's the problem, right?
I feel for him.
They're new songs for that age. That's what Fatboy Slim is on this list.
Huh. Well, Fatboy Slim was around back then. What Fatboy Slim song?
I don't know his titles, but Going Out of My Head is...
Oh, I don't know that song.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll give you another one then. Backstreet Boys, All I Have to Give, remix.
Okay. I can't imagine Backstreet Boys...
Or Tub Thumping.
Yeah, Tub Thumping, that was 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was late 90s.
Chumbawamba. So, I mean,
and then there's...
Again, we're not
Cotton
talking...
Eye Joe.
Yeah, all of these are late 90s or mid 90s. That was when they were hot.
Yeah,
like
and Republica Ready to Go. I remember
Maybe,
that. Yeah.
This guy, if he's okay, so there's two possibilities exist here. Okay, either this guy has been dwelling upon this for 10 years, or somebody's out there still making jock jams, and we don't know who he is or that he existed until right now. Like,
well, can we clear up the top 10?
Yeah,
remember, there's a top 10.
Let's talk about the top 10.
Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna rush through them. Pump Up the Jam.
Pump up the jam, pump it up while your feet are stumping.
Will Smith's Miami.
Party in the summer where the heat is on, all night on the beach till the break of dawn. Welcome to Miami.
Mo Money, Mo Problems.
I don't remember. I remember it. I don't know if I'd be able to sing it.
Oh, I only remember parts of the B.I.G. Verse.
Oh, B.I.G. P.O.P.P.A.
Yeah, no info for the DEA. Federal agents mad because a flagrant tap was out and the phone in the basement. My team supreme, stay clean. Triple beam, lyrical dream. I be that. Can't you see that all the fresh... whatever. Okay.
You nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I've listened to that one. I wore out tapes on just that one verse. I was like, dude, this guy's awesome. Push by Salt and Pepper. Push It by Salt and Pepper.
Oh yeah.
Let me clear my throat.
Let me clear my throat.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom,
Out
boom,
There,
boom,
Brothers. I don't know what that is.
Boom, boom, boom.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You know what? That's. I was thinking of Black Eyed Peas. The boom, boom.
Oh.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, no, this is Out There, Brothers.
That's the one I think that the Out There Brothers. They're the ones that always gig us on.
Really?
Yeah.
So is that the song?
Must be.
Here, let me see if I. Oh, let me hear you say "Wayo, ayo," that song.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard it,
boom,
but that's.
Boom, yeah.
That's the one. Yep. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, Somepin' New by Coolio.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Get your woman on the floor. Come and get up, get down. That's how it goes.
Mm-hmm. And then Tootsie Roll from the 69 Boys with a Z.
Yeah.
Remember
well,
that was
how
hard?
You would do it. That's back in the 90s. You would always use a Z. Like if ever there was an option, you'd either use a Z or you'd use a money sign, right?
Yes.
Either one was acceptable. Preferably, I think more often than not, we saw a Z. Now that
it was Boys to Men. It wasn't even about being hard after a while.
That one, yeah.
Yep.
That's a good
and
track.
Then, oh yeah. And then Whoop, There It Is. And then last, Get Ready for This. We all know that one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, unfortunately, out of all of these here, to remind myself of the lyrics, it's the video is unavailable out of all of them. If you can believe it.
The one that I called you on your bluff.
Dude, no, it's y'all ready for this? It's that one, but I don't know of any other words. So if I'm wrong,
I think that was it. Like they didn't have a hard time coming up with the title for that song. I don't believe.
Well, you know what's interesting, Tom? If we're right, okay, and the song is actually "Y'all Ready for This," then if that's the words, right? If those are the words, "Y'all ready for this," which I think they are, then they literally took the one line and did not use that for the title because it's "Get ready for this."
Well, it's implied.
One line.
It's implied.
One line.
What it is it goes from "Y'all ready for this" is directing who he's speaking to, whereas "Get ready for this" is a directive, right? You're saying "Get ready for this," and in that case, the "y'all" is implied, right? It's parenthetical. But in the question, which precedes the song, because they have to ask you before the song starts, like, "Hey, y'all ready for this?" Then they get your attention. It's like addressing a letter, right? You can't just like parenthetically address a letter and hope it gets to where it's going, right? You have to. Like,
if I got a letter
y'all.
that started out, "Y'all ready for this?" I would be like, I'm interested now.
Yeah, that's the thing
attention.
now.
You have my attention. What are we talking about?
When you
Is this
prepare
a pyramid
someone for
scheme?
a letter.
Am
yeah,
I
like
financing my house?
When's the last time you got a letter that you were like, "Oh, hold on," like you were fascinated or you were intrigued by it? You're like, "Yeah, what is this?" And you actually, I get so much junk or whatever. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. I did get an email this week, and it was, and I want to do it justice because it's so bad. It's one of those. I have my resume on some websites or whatever for when I was looking for a job, and I leave it there because sometimes I get no, it's not an OnlyFans one. I didn't include that on the one that I submitted or uploaded. I should have because I was in the top 99%. I was, and they gave me a discount because I'm crippled. This person, no, I leave it there because sometimes I get like good, interesting offers, and I like to see what's on the table or whatever. Not that I would ever take one, but because I don't intend to work one of these stupid ass jobs that they like when they see my resume, they're like, "Oh, this guy's he's like a sure shot for this job. This is exactly who we're looking for this recruiter B2B job or this office job or whatever bullshit." So this one he sends me. And it's been a while since I've gotten one. It's from a company called LanceSoft, which is like if you look at the LanceSoft website and find out what they do, it's exactly like when you think of a fake company who like whatever, who's like someone somewhere came up with this really good idea for a company that they knew if they could just get it off the ground, they'd be set for life, and nobody would actually have to do anything. It's
the one with the I had a guy talk to me do a video one time about the same idea, and he's Pockets of the Future. He's a good channel. He does truther stuff, spiritual stuff, and he said, one time I was desperate to try to find a job, so I just looked in this was back when they still had newspapers, and he's like, I thought this listing said pyramid scheme all over it, but I had nothing else to do, and it was really hot out, so I went to the place with air conditioning. And he says it turns out it was an empty warehouse with a whiteboard, and then a table of snacks, and then just a bunch of guys being talked into putting money into the business.
Yeah,
as a job.
That sounds almost like a cult, but a legal one.
Yes, and by the way, I want to say to you, while I'm not going to read the article, and we're putting the nail in the coffin here, at least for now. We know that things in coffins don't last on the show, but in 2019, Tatiana Perry of the Daily Illini, which I assume is for Illinois people. Oh, it's for the University of Illinois. Excuse me. Jock jams to celebrate 10th anniversary.
So it is older than 10 years.
I mean, so 2019, that would be 2009.
Yeah, that is not at all accurate.
I don't know. Yeah,
None of that's accurate. We need to write a letter to the editor and let him know someone.
Look, I know this girl graduated 4 years ago, probably, but and she's remote learning now.
Poor thing.
or whatever,
Maybe we should read her article. Hold on, let me finish this. Let me tell you this email that I got real quick. before I forget, because I'll get sidetracked. But I read the email, right? Because I give them that much. And it says, hope this email finds you in good cheer. I recently found your resume online, blah, blah, blah. I want to talk more about your background. We are currently recruiting for the above mentioned. So red flag 1, there's nothing above. Like, I didn't request anything and whatever. The above mentioned position and your qualifications appear to be a good match. Would you have some quick time for us to connect regarding a new role? I'm attaching the job description. Would you have some quick time?
Yeah,
would I have some quick time? That's not. I wasn't speaking incorrectly. I'm reading verbatim.
Sure. Right.
Would you have some quick time for us to connect regarding a new role? I'm attaching the job description. Now here's where it gets weird. I'm attaching a job description as if it wasn't already. The job description for your quick reference below. Title: Administrator and Recruiting Specialist. Work location: Cincinnati, Ohio. Duration: 2 to 3 months. Contract with possible extension. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds pretty much like what my resume screams would be qualified for.
Sure, yeah.
Since like most of it was recruiting. Job description, parenthetically, tasks to be completed and by whom, and parentheses. List the job role or roles, specific tasks, and how many people you need in each role. Note, number of people needed for time and materials, SOWs. Okay. So they forgot to fill in the job description, and they just left what was copied and pasted, right?
This sounds pretty serious.
Yeah. Scope of work, parenthetically. What is the detail behind the project? And parentheses. Skills needed to perform in this job. Yeah, and then nothing interesting. Best regards.
Skills needed: the ability to write an email.
Yeah, that's step 1, right? But then
you can clearly see we need your help.
Yeah, poor thing. I feel for her because this person's name is Mahendra, and I emailed them back simply this, like, rather than being rude, which was my first instinct. I wanted to be rude.
Sure.
I said,
did you go with charming but funny?
No, I just like neutral. I went all straight neutral. Nope. No salutation, no signature. I just wrote in the email body, you forgot to edit what you copied and pasted, so it's all generic and gives directions about what to put in its place. Period. Send. That was it.
And you got nothing back?
They did not respond back to my...
Oh, that's even worse.
That's criminal, as far as I'm
concerned. Come on, guys.
I took the time out of my busy schedule to reply to your half-assed attempt to recruit me. This is probably what it was probably someone brand new in that position, recruit the recruiter position or whatever, staffing.
Oh yeah.
And they said, here, just try these names, take these 10 names and send off look at their resumes and send off what you think would be best for them. And so the supervisor who was watching them was like, all right, who do you got? Oh, well, I think this Tom Miller guy, he's pretty good on this. Okay, send him the email. Here, just do me a favor, copy and paste this thing that I have, and then go ahead and fill in the blocks with what's on the site or on this other program. Oh, okay. Wait, you said fill it in? Okay, I fucked up.
Whoops.
Hey, don't even worry about it. It's your first day, Mahendra. Don't trip. You got all the rest of your life to do this, to get this right. And then again, nobody. Whatever.
Is Mahendra? Why am I thinking Mahendra is the name of a lentil? Or no, Madras. Excuse me. Because I'm trying to picture the person, and all I could see is a bag of lentils.
I was imagining an Indian.
That was my trouble.
Because I don't know the name. Mahendra.
Right.
I don't know where it comes from. And when in doubt,
that's what I'm saying.
When in doubt, you Indian. You go Indian.
Well, I mean, look.
Wasn't that
this
the
is
moral of your story that you were telling before the show?
Yeah.
About the food.
That's it. When in doubt, it's an Indian dish.
All right. So what do we? What? There's a couple things I did want to talk about before the show, and we got off on this whole other thing, which I think was probably funnier than what I was going to say. But
Tom, I got to tell you, I'm actually thankful we were able to get through it because we've never bantered before. It was unique. It was unique to this show, and I'm glad we really hit it out of the park. I
agree. I'm
proud of both of us.
We've never once deviated from a scripted type of thing before, so it's always nice to see that we're capable of such things. I have this bit that I'd like to do, and I need your help. It's a two-person effort. It's a duet. It's a duet joke. Ooh, and this is your first time that you're going to be hearing it, so good luck.
Yes,
I have all my part written down, so you're on your own. Okay. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't remember who brought it up. It was that Blair White, the tranny that's like against trannies.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, how do you? We're somehow got onto the topic. I said, how do you feel about Blair White? Because I almost am inclined to call Blair White she, or refer to her as she, just because you see this individual and you just
if you take a pound of makeup off, right? It gets a little
he'd look
closer,
like a guy
but,
for sure.
Yeah.
But they do a good job of like tricking us, right? And but they're also very much against the whole conditioning of like kids and force, parents trying to force their kids, the Munchausen by proxy, like that shit.
Right.
So I'm like, I feel like some kind of like tolerance towards this individual, even though I'm like very much against transgenderism. But then I think about like, who, you see, well, it came in the form of this joke that I read, or a story about this cripple who was on stage, and he was part of like this judging show. I don't know, like kind of like a Miss America or Miss USA or whatever. And this cripple, it was partially retarded. I assume he had some kind of like, the thing the kid from Breaking Bad had, where he's just like retarded but also crippled.
Cerebral palsy?
Yeah,
no.
Where they're kind of all whatever it is, where they're all fucked up, and like visibly crippled, but also like once they start talking, you're like, oh, this is a retarded person too. So this individual is on stage at this judging show, and they say there's all these women, and I guess his response in front of this crowd of women and women judges was,
and I was right, by the way, it's cerebral palsy.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, then you nailed it. See, this is why we have you around, right?
That's it.
Because you
I know all the.
I
know all of them.
You've collected all the retardations or whatever, like their Pokemon.
Let me tell you something. When my bike rides down the street, you hear a flap and a flap from all those hands. It's
all the medical diagnoses.
It's all the med cards. That's it. And it's got an example per card of a guy, one of them smiling.
I choose you.
We're here. Oh, dude, do you remember the Patton Oswalt bit, by the way?
No.
Where he said,
please.
Oh, God. This is before he became really lame, okay? Ever since he may or may not have let his wife die because
he murdered his wife,
yeah, ever since he may or may not have murdered his wife in the backwoods, that kind of thing. And he's talking about that. And he goes, and by the way, I think we need to get more inclusive. Where's the retarded queer? Where's the retarded queer, parade? And he goes, could you imagine their slogans? Oh, here, we're queer. Apples.
What a mess. Yeah, see, he used to be, and this is like the comics that used to say offensive stuff, and then all of a sudden realized that they were going to get canceled if they did, because then their core audience just became very soft, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and then Megabits in the chat saying he murdered her for sure. For a moment, we went offline and it had to reconnect. So I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I saw that little skip. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it didn't skip too much. But the let's see, like that whole thing with you throwing the ball, saying Down syndrome, I choose you. But no, that kind of goes into what I was saying, like where you have somebody who's like a champion for a progressive's agenda or whatever, or their thing, and then they have not necessarily a contradictory, like they can exist within the same realm, but contradictory to what the progressives want. They have an opinion on something else that contradicts that. So while they are the darling for this particular aspect, all of a sudden this other aspect, they're like, well, no, we don't like that. And then it puts the ball kind of in the progressives' court saying, well, what are you going to do with this? Now, for an example, like I said, Blair White, right?
Sure.
Transgender icon, right? Who gets out there and says, oh, being a tranny is super duper and this is something you can aspire for and I'm famous and you can love me, whatever. But so the progressives would naturally love that. However, Blair White is pro-gun, like anti-conditioning your kids and against people just transitioning for this, that, and the other. You know, so otherwise, everything else about this individual is hated widely by the progressives.
Yes.
Now, my other example that I think is more useful today is like the abortion doctor who refuses to get vaccinated. Like, what do you do with that? Does he get to continue? Is he like an exception, or are they going to fire the abortion doctor who doesn't want to get vaccinated, right? Like, what do you do with that? And that's kind of the extreme that I'm curious if you have any examples of people who are progressive darlings, but then they do something that now the progressives are like, well, I don't know what to do now. What do I do? And then they themselves have to become hypocrites because they have to either allow that person or they have to cancel them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, Well, first of all, like, it's so very easy without having to point out like a real person, but we all know a person. Like, for example, they look at minorities as like kind of chips on, or like cards in a deck. Like, oh, we got the full house. We're winning this whole thing because we got black guys on our side. We got, Hispanic people. We have whatever, excuse me, not all Hispanic people are named that. Some of them like Latinx. Thank you. Okay.
Nobody likes that.
No, nobody does. But somehow that's a thing, right? But isn't that the example? So first of all, Latino / Hispanics are always clumped into the same, and they fucking hate each other. Like, I watch a guy who does a show who's Cuban, and they hate Puerto Ricans, and Puerto Ricans hate Mexicans, and Mexicans hate Guatemalans, and and you just kind of like, I remember trying to learn Spanish when I was much younger, and I worked at Walgreens. There was a Puerto Rican girl in the pharmacy side, and I'd go say something to her out of my book, and she'd go, "No, you have to say it like this," because she's like Puerto Rican. It's
right.
One version of Spanish, and then
dialect.
Right, and then I go, "Oh, okay, sorry. I know it's by the book. I don't get it." And then I walk over to, the Dominican girl from the Dominican Republic, in the like perfume and like ladies, sort of section and stuff, cosmetics, and I'd say it to her, and she'd go, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" And because, right, and I go, "What do you mean?" I just talked to her, and she goes, "Oh, that's not even Spanish. That's because they hate each other."
Right.
And so they're all clumped into one. And then when you add that to any minority who likes the cops at all. Oh, and God help you, like okay, how about this? Real person. So a black mayor was finally voted into office in New York. But he also seems to be wanting to triple down on de Blasio's coof stuff.
Oh.
Like making everybody get the shot. De Blasio's nuts, but this guy seems to want to triple down on it. And so you go, wow. So at first, people were like, oh, he's a black guy. Oh, it's going to be another liberal. And then he was a cop. And then the right-wing people were going, oh, fucking yeah. You liberals hate cops. And he's black, so you can't even be mad about it. And then he comes out and he goes, well, I'm just going to triple down on de Blasio's shit. And then everybody went,
what? Yeah, everybody was pissed. He just ruined everything.
Everything. Yeah, So it's easy to find those people, or like the Mexican, specifically a Mexican, because they always have to, like, no one understands it. It's not really even that, like, yes, Mexicans cross the border and all that, but like people come up from South and Central America through Mexico. People tend to forget that somehow. And if you find, but because of that, if you just find a Mexican who liked Trump, dude, like, I'm not I'm not here to talk about the positives and negatives about Trump. I'm not here to talk. I'm just saying everybody said he was a white supremacist who thought all Mexicans were murderer rapists. And then there's Jose going, he's not so bad. I kind of like his, it's just, what?
I'll tell you what. Every Mexican that I know liked Trump. And I know a lot of Mexicans.
Really?
And it's because, I'll tell you why. It's because of his hardline. Well, a lot of it is conservatism. Like, they thought he was going to be a conservative, and they thought, and a lot of Mexicans are very conservative because they
have a religious background.
They've got that, a lot of Catholicism, a lot of religious background, a lot of, it's conservative values, if nothing else. And then as far as money goes or whatever, conservative so-so. But then, like, on the border, they were more worried about that because either they busted their asses getting over here legally, or they are waiting on family members who are trying to do it legally.
Oh, yeah.
Or any number of things about the border that they're trying to do it the right way, and they see all the, and then not to mention all the bad shit that does come across the border that gives them a bad name.
And they live there too, by the way. That's the other thing. People forget that. Like, not to say that, like, when we're talking about this, it's not as though, like, zero crime comes from Mexican people or something. It's not like that. We're just saying, look, if you just say, all right, well, Mexicans who live on the border in America have to deal with the shit that comes over the border into America. And people forget, like, I love watching those cop shows or, like, border patrol shows. And I like watching them for one reason only, and that is to see how many border patrol are Mexicans. I don't want to say they're Mexican, but at least they're Hispanic, right? So I just love watching that. So I'm like watching them going, I wonder if a person had different beliefs than me, would they think that this was from a different, like, how when they were trying to scare us all with Koof, I mean, they still are, but do you remember they were taking, like, overwhelmed Italian hospitals and saying it was, like, in New York, and then, different other shit like that? I wonder if there's somewhere on the planet where they go, well, we can't show that all these Hispanics are arresting other Hispanics coming over the border. Can we put this as, like, video footage from Spain or some kind of place? And then some Spanish
blur out
news.
The American or the U.S. flag.
The flag on the and they forget that everybody's not going.
That's not how they talk, you racist bastard.
I had those books on tape, you son of a bitch. I heard
I know
for
exactly
4 fucking
what they
years.
sound like, damn you.
Oh, by the way, Don saying David Dinkins. Well, Don, it's not me forgetting David Dinkins. America has forgotten David Dinkins. Because all I hear is, oh, he's like finally getting a black mayor, blah, 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 And here we are. That's who? David who?
Too black. What is it? The saying goes, too black for the badge, too blue for the brothers. So.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So too black for the administration, but too blue or too blue collar, too white collar. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. Somebody can make that joke. And
by the way, Mike in Manitoba, I want to address you just a second here because he is saying, you think that's bad? Wait till Canadians get there. First of all, I don't know who you consider true Canadians because I know there's an internal fight about French Canadians in Canada, as far as I know. Like Montreal is almost like, or Quebec. Is it Quebec? I think, right? Quebec is like a completely different animal, and most Canadians try not to even think about it or something. Yeah,
like it would end up being what Western, well, true Canada, and then whatever.
It's like Saskatchewan.
Trudeau's Canada would be the other one.
Well, yeah, but the point I want to make is even here in my home state, as well as even down to Florida, apparently French Canadians come down A, for work all the time, and then B, to vacation in Florida. I can understand the vacation part. I mean, if I'm in fucking Canada and it's winter, I'm going anywhere that there isn't 5 feet of snow and -0 degrees or whatever. But yeah, anyway, I just want to say, you think that's bad. You're already here. That's the thing. Well, before they shut down the border and all that.
Yeah, they're not allowed here. I was going to say, you made that joke about, or you made that comment about how the Hispanics, all the various Latin countries and South American countries hate one another. And then I was like, that's almost like, we in the North America, right? We hate one another. We all hate each other. You've got America, and then you've got Canada, and we hate the Canadians. The Canadians hate us.
That's right.
It's a natural thing. No, for us, really, it's the states, right? Because I was thinking about this Kazakhstan situation, right? You're tracking what's going on in Kazakhstan.
Ooh. Yes, I want to. By the way, first. Do you have? I don't know if we could pull it up, but if we could put up their flag or their national anthem, I have to admit, I felt sorry for those bros back when notorious not Kazakhstanian Borat made a whole 2 movies making fun of their culture, and then also making fun of our culture, of course, and trying to attack, of all people, Ron fucking Paul, But anyway,
I haven't watched the second one yet, so
the second one's so bad. So bad.
I figured.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother with it because I really thought the first one was hilarious, but whatever.
I loved the first one until I watched it years later and went, oh, it's not as it's when you start knowing that Sacha Baron Cohen went to the UN and said Facebook is responsible for speech on its platform, and we have to shut down the internet to stop speech and all these sorts of things. And it's like, motherfucker, you were Borat. You were Bruno. You were Ali G. What the fuck are you talking about? And so, knowing now that he's a SPLC and what's the other one? ADL.
All
those ones. He was sponsored by and I just went, wow, man. And because unless he changed completely somehow, right? Then it was, when you look back at how he made fun of us, even if he had a point, if you look back at how he made fun of us in those movies, and then you look at who he is as a person and you go, oh, so this wasn't like gentle jabs at the country that took you in and made you millions. This is, oh shit, you really hate. Oh, okay. And Ron Paul of all people, not I don't know who.
Yeah, even
just pick anyone else at that time.
Just any old
anybody
buddy.
At that time.
That's the fucked up
out
thing
of
about
all
it.
People.
What it is you see it everywhere. All the people who will make fun of us, and we'll have a laugh too, because I thought it was pretty funny, even though it was making fun of people like me. I was like, wow, this is pretty funny. And then as soon as somebody cuts back at him and says, well, no, because isn't he British or something? He's from England.
He's British, yes, and of course Jewish.
So as soon as you start picking on his people, right? Then all of a sudden, whoa, we've gone too far with, and it's not even like our jabs were any worse than his. They're either, because they're certainly not as clever in some cases, because some people are just like, you fucking Jews and your curly hair or whatever, and he's like, whoa, hold up.
Right.
Hate speech has gone too far. So it's a matter of, well, I'll make my money shitting on everybody, and then
including the Jews, by the way.
Yeah, and it's
imagine saying, no, I know, but imagine saying, oh, no, hate speech has to be taken down on the internet and all this sorts of thing, and then turning around and watching his Borat movie, thinking, oh no, well, he must be, taking people to task, and then instead you see the running of the Jew in Kazakhstan and stuff. And so not only is he making fun of Kazakhstanis, which in our world, in our culture, would be a minority, and you can't, that would be problematic. But then on top of it, you're also making fun of the Jews with literally a running of the Jew.
I think what we need to do from now on is, anytime any kind of Jew writer, right? Anytime or a Jew director, or any kind of Jew in entertainment makes fun of any protected class, anyone. Okay. Because, then we make it about how, oh, well, this was made in America, so technically you are utilizing American soil and American means and American, resources to make light of these minorities around the world or whatever. And that's not cool. We need to dial back so that we end up getting all this stuff just picked apart to where it's like shit that was like an hour and a half when it was finally cut and edited or whatever. By the time it's gone
short.
through, yeah, right. We've stripped it of everything, and the thing doesn't even make sense at a certain point. It's not funny. It's totally unwatchable at that point, and we need to do that. And then also we need to remind the Jews, right, and anybody for that matter, that you can't make fun of white people. Because we are technically a minority around the world, right?
We are absolutely, yes.
Which is why I think they have the Hispanics classified as white, right? So that they
that's absolutely part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so that they can say, well, no. You guys aren't a minority because you guys are lumped in with the Hispanics.
Well, you know what, it helps too, and I'm not trying to be any kind of way here, but how do I put this? If you take a substantial portion of the population and then you start compiling crime statistics, it makes other statistics not look so glaring when you don't say what the amount of population. If you just say, hey, wait a minute, white people do this. Wait, don't you count Hispanics and Asians and Pacific Islanders and you just basically say everybody else?
It was made clear to me when I was working at a jail and a guy named so-and-so Gonzalez or whatever, and it said race white. And I was like, well, no, he's not white. He's about as Mexican as you can get. And like they're like, well, yeah, they classify for criminal statistics, they classify Hispanics as white. And I'm like, well, he's brown as fuck. Like his name is Juan Gonzalez, and he speaks only Spanish and not even good Spanish. Like he's about like as Mexican as you can get. And
I don't know what the word brown is in Spanish, but I feel like his name could be like.
It's exactly what you think it is.
Browno?
Oh no. It's cafe, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. So
I was thinking of negro. I'm like, no, that's.
Oh yeah.
That's black.
No, you're just like, no, he's really, really brown. No, but I know they classify him as white. Yeah, I know, but his name is literally Juan Cafe. It's literally
it's Juan Cafe. There's probably another word. It's been a long time since I've seriously studied it. So what I want to do is for 15 minutes, because I can't imagine this topic that we're covering today is going to take an entire hour. And I would like to be done by the 2-hour mark, because I'm telling you, I have COVID, and I know that I have COVID because I have a headache and a runny nose. So I know I'm on my way out.
Hey, everybody in the chat, can you please say something to Tom?
Yeah, please.
Just so he knows that he was remembered. I don't want to say as what, but I'm just saying if you all could say something in the chat so Tom could take that with him on what is potentially
my final journey.
On potentially probably his final broadcast. Can we please just say something nice to Tom, or whatever you want to say to Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be nice. Treat the chat like speaking of Hispanics, but like a bad neighborhood where somebody is killed in a drive-by, and then they hang up the picture of the Virgin Mary.
Oh, the Guadalupe
with the kid. The kid's picture. Even though the guy is like 28, they hang up a picture of him in. It's
always the kid's picture.
And then and then they put all the doodads and the candles with the Virgin, the Blessed Mother on it.
Stuffed animals and the best candles in the world, my friend.
Yeah, treat it like that, where you write notes on the Blessed Mary, or the Blessed Mother, excuse me, who intercedes for and protects us now and in the moment of our death. I don't know the what the hell is it called, the Hail Mary. So you'll have to do what you can. And welcome to the chat, by the way, Critter Returns. We haven't even done the welcome yet. So
it's 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
We're quite negligent.
We'll do the welcome, we'll do the toast, and then I've got one more thing I want to say, and then we'll jump right into the topic. So welcome to the chat, Mike in Manitoba. I think this is like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. At this point, Mike is just like, he's been consistently the winner. Jacob, Your Face, J Dubs, who's playing video games right now, couldn't even focus his whole attention on us. Want to say that we appreciate you being here, though, J Dubs. Megabit, Mega Bounce House Bouncy, or whatever. My friend who didn't know the name, or Megabot Metapod. Joseph Myrer, Efren Flores, Don Trout, and then, of course, Critter Timbers, who was a little late, but no less appreciated for her attendance today. And what are we cheersing to? The hopeful collapse of Kazakhstan, a nation that has less people in it than New York City has. Can we cheers to that? The total
yes,
collapse?
Absolutely. I have to say, I don't think we're far off because Russia's sending in peacekeepers. Yeah. So
yeah, it's like, please,
they're
sending in peacekeepers. Even the people on the news couldn't even say it with a straight face. They're like, Russia, peacekeepers. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I do have to say though, folks, I don't know. I'm not trying to get us kicked off the air. Okay? I'm not trying to do that. All right. Now, with that being said, I'm going to get a kick off the air. I just want to say, Tom, I think I sent you, it was Brazil. The mayor of Brazil had put in some draconian koof rules, and I sent you video of him getting the absolute shit kicked out of him by a mob. If you remember.
Awesome. I do, yep.
Yeah, and then, we also have what's going on now in Kazakhstan. Now, if people don't know, literally, this may sound familiar because there's some Yahoo articles and things coming out about this type of thing. Price fixing, in the sense that, of course, all the prices of shit's going up right now. Things are becoming more costly, inflation, etc. So the government, through it's like Yahoo News and other proxies, are floating things like universal basic income, seeing if it sticks. They're floating other things like price fixing. And what that means is that they would try to force private businesses to sell their goods and wares at a steady price for as long as the government deems it. Well, Kazakhstan's been doing that with their natural gas for fucking forever. And overnight, they just said, well, we're not making any money doing this anymore, so we have to flip the switch and make it sell for what we can make money on. And suddenly, the cost of natural gas doubled overnight, and the Kazakhstanis, would that be right, Tom, you think? Kazakhstanis? Yeah. They went and set fire to their Congress or capital. I don't know exactly what they have over there, but essentially they're large.
Yeah, it's the Capitol building. Yeah, whatever. I think that's the way to say it, though, is just say their Capitol building. That way, you're not like you're not painting yourself into a corner, right? You're just saying the Capitol building. It might be Parliament. It might be this huge Parliament building with a giant dome, like our Capitol building. But it may also be a chicken coop. Who knows? But it's a Capitol building. That's what it's labeled.
Exactly. So they burned it to the ground, and then they ransacked the armory and took all the guns, and then I don't even know if I should say defeated their military, but essentially cornered them to the point where they were like, all right, we're not gonna fight this. And
they captured a bunch of them, and then I guess the rest chicken out. Here's the thing you got to understand about these third world countries or whatever. And I don't know, I would classify Kazakhstan as a third world country. I mean, it's a shithole country. It's one that was like taken by
Tom. It was on a movie. Clearly not that bad.
No, it's a big deal now because of the movie. That was their biggest break when all of a sudden people were like, "There's a what? A Kazakhstan?
That's real."
Yeah, a lot
of people
didn't
even bother to make it fake.
Yeah, people had to Google it because they're like, that can't be a real place. That's so absurd. He's probably making fun of Afghanistan. And then come to find out, Kazakhstan is a real place. Which is, it's like a Russian province, essentially. Like, what is it, Chechnya? Which is like a Saudi, it's almost like it's a Russian province that is controlled
somehow
by
relatively independent.
Yeah, it's still owned by, and I mean the Russian government gets a piece of that action, but they are allowed to control it at their basic lower level, and that's kind of what Kazakhstan is. It's basically fucking Russia. It might as well be. Much of that part of the world should be, but a lot of these places, their military, and this is the same. I think is the same with like China. A lot of them are like in the military. First of all, in all these shithole countries, right, like Kazakhstan or Iraq or Afghanistan, a lot of their military, right, is not people who are like, I have this burning desire to serve my nation. It's people who are like, I am having to eat bugs off of the ground. I would rather have a cot to sleep on. And
Dude.
you know,
Like,
and if they're gonna give me a gun and give me a uniform or whatever, I don't care how dirty it was or what, if it came off of a dead body somewhere, which is often the case. Do you
remember,
you know,
Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire? This is his this is out of context, but I will say it, and I think you'll know why I remember it. He was applying for the nanny job, if you remember, and he kept coming up with different characters to come, and he was applying. And in his interview with Sally Field, I am Job.
Right,
so,
right.
have you ever dealt with kids? Do you care about? I mean, they, you know, there's 3 of them, and I am Job.
So yeah, and that's exactly what they are.
As you're talking, that's what I'm hearing.
They're
you know?
so desperate for just four hots or 3 hots in a cot is what it's called, right?
Right.
You know, you've got. They're going to get a cot. They're going to get food. They're going to get whatever. They're going to be protected. They're going to be given a gun, training, something to do during the day or whatever. They've got nothing else. These aren't people who had other options, right? You know, you look at the military in the U.S., and there are requirements for the military. I can speak to this because I had to put them in the Army, right? A lot of people think that the military is a last resort. It's not. To some people, it might be. But a lot of those people, I'll tell you how many people.
It's a desert resort. But
nice. That's what it ended up being. Hopefully, in the near future, we'll be going to other places so that you'll get to see maybe mountains, maybe woodlands, or who knows. But how many people in a day would come to me and say, I want to join the Army? Out of everybody who would come to me and say that they wanted to join the Army, I would say 90% of them were disqualified. I couldn't put them in the Army if I wanted to, for one reason or another. And it's because we have such strict rules. Well, we had. This is 5-6 years ago when I was doing it. I don't know what's happened since then. I know they allowed trannies to join and shit, and that was, to me, an issue because... I don't care if a tranny joins or if like a cross-dresser joins, because who cares what you do?
Right.
Like if it's a bedroom thing, who cares what you're doing there? But when you're talking about, okay, well, if you're a transgender, you can join the Army. That's fine. That's not a disqualifier anymore. Okay, super duper.
Right.
But the things that are also present in a transgender are going to disqualify you from federal service. Okay, so like... a history of depression, a history of anxiety, a history of gender dysphoria, dysphoria, a history of cutting yourself, any kind of treatment, therapy, or otherwise, you have to go through a psych eval. You have to submit all your documents, and if there was ever any kind of suicidal ideation, that's a disqualifier. Any kind of medication in the past whatsoever, you're gonna have to do a waiver. All this stuff that people are like, well, if you're a tranny, you can join. Yeah, great. You know how many trannies have joined the Army since that process? Probably 0. There were probably people who came out that were in who were like, yeah, okay, I'm a fucking tranny. And you know why they came out as a tranny while they were in the Army or in the military? Is because females have a lower standard on the physical fitness tests. You can, instead of having... so for a man... to get a 60% on the push-ups, you'd have to do like 40 or 50 push-ups, whatever it was, depending on your age. Right. For a woman, it's like 13. So if all
Tom,
of a sudden
I'm sorry. I believe the rule, and I don't mean to challenge you.
No, please.
Because you were there, but I'm sorry. I'm going to challenge you. I believe the rule was lesser but equal. I believe that was what on the standards.
Okay.
Yeah, it was lesser but equal, if I remember. Also,
that
there's
sounds
a new
like
rule.
Some Jim Crow shit.
I'm not. I don't listen to hip hop. I don't know what you're talking
Hold
about.
on. Now I gotta ask you: is this lesser but equal? Because sometimes I've got to clarify with you because you and I do this deadpan thing every once in a while where we'll lie with a straight face as a joke, and then you kind of like have a hard time determining. Is this lesser but equal? Are you being serious? Is that an actual thing that you read somewhere? Or are you making a joke about the separate but equal?
Oh, well, not only is it true that there are different standards that are considered equal that happen to be lesser on one side than the other, and it has been codified as the lesser but equal, holy shit, I can't believe they believe this rule. But did you also know, Tom, that while they do have many restrictions for those with mental illnesses or disabilities, did you know that now, if you identify or could otherwise be qualified as a potato, you can join?
As a potato?
Yes.
You know what? Yes, I wish I would still be in recruiting right now, because I would put so many people in just to be like, I would put so many otherwise disqualified people in, and I would accuse the guidance counselors and the administration at the MEPS of being bigots if they didn't put my people on the floor, or in the, if they wouldn't put my people
out in the field.
I would say, listen, dude. I was like, I know that this dude has cuts up and down his arms and his legs. Excuse me, this young woman. He's got cuts, scars all up and down his arms and legs from self-mutilation. I know that they were literally on medication until the day before they went up to the hotel to join. And I know that they go to counseling 8 times a week, right? For their gender dysphoria. But if you don't put this person in the army, you're a bigot. And I'm going to tell President Barack Obama, is because I think he was still the president when I got out.
That's okay. You could mean that for now too. It's fine.
It might as well be. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
I'm going to tell President Barack Joe Biden Obama.
I'm going to stress this again from last week, very briefly. During Christmas break, on the Santa NORAD call, our president not only was trolled with the national anthem against his rule, so to speak, but he also subsequently agreed and then asked the guy where he lived, because he wanted to probably get a beer or see if there are any corn pops in his area.
He wanted to send out his corn pop brigade.
That's right. And the point in that is, if that happened, that means one of two things. Either A, our president was completely made unaware of a national campaign complete with the #1 iTunes song and shirts. And
you know what? There were like
videos.
Multiple iTunes songs that made that were on the top 10 list called "Let's Go Brandon."
I'm just saying that there was a #1 song called "Let's Go Brandon." That's all. I'm just throwing that there. So our quote unquote president was either so sheltered, so in the dark, they couldn't possibly let him know this happened, that he did not know that this national thing exists and then agreed with it, or that he was told about a national movement against him and the merchandise and songs and all that, and then completely fucking forgot and debased himself. So if you think that guy's in charge, I would love to invest some money with you somewhere.
I would rather you didn't, Jerry. Not that it's not that I lose anything by you losing money, but like, we're friends, and I would rather you not find yourself.
Oh no, it's not my money. I'm saying if they believe I'm taking their money. You
just want to help out, yeah. I was imagining you like getting ready to invest with somebody who is an idiot. Oh, you're investing in like some kind of new startup, which involves
they talk me into it. You know, like I have a whole thing set up, and then they're like, "Look, dude, hot dogs, but 2 in a bun." Whoa!
I saw that. Right. That's a good idea, though. Hold on.
I couldn't even come up with a bad enough idea.
I saw the picture. All right, I saw the schematics that somebody had made, a hot dog with 2 in a bun or whatever. But then, like,
wait, seriously?
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Off the top of my head, I was unaware.
That's a real thing. Somebody, because I eat often 2 hot dogs, right? Like, I'll eat 2 hot dogs when I sit down, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm hungry. We're having hot dogs. Okay, yeah, fix me up 2 of them, because I know one's not going to be enough, but I want 2. I want a double fist hot dogs. Is what I'm like into, right? But no, like, I'll get my Chicago dogs. Chicago dogs, by the way, superior hot dog. And that one goes out to Megabit, right? I'm a huge fan of Chicago dogs. It's the only thing I like about Chicago is the way they kind of reinvented the wheel there.
Well, what about that Lori Lightfoot?
I don't
what do
like
they
anything
call
about
that?
Lori Lightfoot.
No, with the kids, you know, they draw the fantasy, sexual fantasy stuff. You had sent me some Lori Lightfoot.
I send you any absurd thing I find because I'm like, there's no way.
That's
I'm
not
the
true.
only
I'm
one
setting you up to fail. That's not true.
Okay.
He's never sent me.
All right.
I was if I had only remembered it, it would have sounded less real. But because I was stretching for the word, it actually made it sound like I was really trying to remember what you
I thought maybe I had sent you something. You tricked me. Okay.
I
don't know what I was going to talk about that was important. I said, you know what, we got to deal with this or whatever. See, I got fucking sidetracked. Thriller Park with River Igloos, LGB. Anyways, I have some stuff written down here. That might have been it, and I'll feel bad if I don't do it. So, what episode would be complete? I wrote this down, right? As if I'm like writing my own cue cards, right? And what episode would be complete without our conversation about COVID? The COVID corner, the coof corner of COVID.
Sweet.
So I was thinking about this, and it pisses me off that we didn't do this joke because I've had this joke in my phone for a long time, but then somebody beat me to it, and I don't remember his name, and I want to give him credit, but I don't remember his fucking name. Some dude on Twitter, he said that, whoever he is. But also, welcome to the chat, super fan. He does, and then also Ben, my friend, who doesn't like to be associated with the show.
Okay.
I don't want to forget them, and while that's in my head, let me get that out there. This jalapeno pineapple margarita is something else. I'm telling you. But I told you, I thought it was going to be shitty, but it's actually pretty good. I've had this joke in my phone, and I really should have done it sooner because this dude beat me to it, and he did a more concise. He had a more concise version of my joke, but my joke was like, what if? So we have the COVID vaccine, right? Obviously, it's a thing that exists right now, and you're aware of it. Hot topic of debate. And as a matter of fact, at my Sunday school, there's a kid in my Sunday school. I told you about this, I know. There's a kid in my Sunday school class who his aunt is very pro-vaccine. Like, she was like at the door the morning of the approval of the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds or whatever, so that she could get her nephews and nieces or whatever off to get the vaccine. Like, that's kind of the situation that they were in. He came in on Sunday, and he came in late, as it were.
When you have heart problems, you know.
Yeah, they had to use the AED on him to get him. Hey, we got to go to church. Boom, wake up. But he shows up late, and he's got his mask on, and that was always my thing with my last class, because we rotate classes. It's kind of this new thing that we're doing, and you rotate teachers. So I was at the teens before, now I'm at the kind of like the preteens or whatever. And I told them, I'm like, hey, take your mask off. You don't have to wear your mask in here. That's bullshit. And so I said, hey man, you can take your mask off. And he says, no, I can't. We're just getting over COVID. And I did the the Rihanna, like, oh really? Like, did you, like, why, you just got over COVID? Like, as I recall, your aunt, your mother, everyone in your family was very pushy about everyone in the church getting the COVID vaccine, and like being upset that people were not interested in it, and sharing on Twitter or on Facebook that everybody needs to go get. They share all these articles that are very like thehill.com, Rachel Maddow's tirade that she goes on. These are, very like one-sided arguments or whatever that are clearly bullshit, not rooted in any kind of science. Like, your mom and your aunt were very pushy about this, and no one else in the church, not a single soul in this congregation has COVID. Except for you and your family, and that was like and man, it drove me crazy. But I didn't pick on him. I didn't, I know you see me as this guy who's like a huge dick to everybody. To the kids, I let them go because I know it's not their fault. They were forced. But this whole joke that I had about the vaccine was, I'm like, imagine a world, right? When you were young, I assume you were vaccinated against like polio and fucking Hep A and B and whatever. Remember, like when we were kids, and you would actually get the vaccine at school. In some cases, you would get booster shots at school from some of the schedules, because it was just like these were tried and true vaccinations that were rooted in science, that were true, and they worked. And by the time we got them in the like the 80s and 90s, you know, we knew that they worked. So
they only made you retarded.
Yeah, well, 1 in 100, right? So
right, yeah.
No, nobody is made retarded or whatever. I know that you're a
come
collector.
on. They're not at all calling that an epidemic right now. Come on, guys.
No, come on now. I've watched the Penn and Teller special about vaccinations. But they no, but you're vaccinated up until the COVID vaccine, right? I am too, and I'm like not above admitting that. There are some that perhaps I might like look back a lot, especially a lot of my stuff in the military. I should have fought harder against, but you know, we got all those vaccines. Now imagine, so for instance, polio. We'll use polio, okay? And I think that's what the joke that the dude made too. But like, or mumps, say mumps, right? You're vaccinated against mumps, okay? And then what if tomorrow you woke up and you had some unusual swelling in your jaw? And you're like, okay, this is weird. And you went to the doctor, and the doctor tested it, and it came back and said, hey, you've tested positive for mumps. Would you be a little confused, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would be perhaps even angry, right? You'd be like, what happened? And then you would consult the doctor. You might say, well, hold on. I have never had mumps. I was vaccinated against mumps years and years ago.
10 minutes ago. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that too. You know, if you're an immigrant or whatever, it's usually 10 minutes. But, you know, why am I getting mumps? You know, and then what if this doctor said, well, the vaccine wasn't designed to prevent you from getting mumps. Okay. That would be some news to you, right? You might be like,
I think so, yeah.
Be like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's exactly what a vaccine does. It prevents you from getting the disease, right?
Yes.
Now.
Supposedly.
Now, the year is 2020. Everybody is in a frenzy over something that they saw on their TV, right?
Yes.
And they are quick to reach for any hope, any life jacket that is or a life preserver or whatever, any ring that is tossed to them. They need somebody to save them. And somebody says, hey, here's a fucking life preserver. And they throw like a t-shirt attached to a string. You're like, this is not a life preserver. And they're like, just take it. And you do, because you're so panicked that you've forgotten what a life preserver looks like. You've forgotten everything. You've forgotten the basic fundamentals of what a life preserver is.
Sure. Well, worse than that, Tom, they didn't send you a t-shirt. They sent you an anvil. It's an anvil. And you said, I know this is floating right now, but I'm pretty sure this is an anvil. Well, it's the only thing you have to hold on to.
Yeah,
well,
grab
that's
it.
True. That is true.
So, and well, I said a t-shirt because, you know, you put it on, it makes it just a little bit more difficult. Sometimes it's enough to weigh you down. Sometimes it's not.
That's true.
It just depends on the shirt. So, like, right now we know that you are 25% more likely to drown if you receive this life preserver than you are if you just swim to the boat on your own.
Dude, here, I'll give you a statistic. It's not exact related, but I'll give you one. You are now, if you're a teenage boy, you are now statistically more likely to go to the hospital with myocarditis or other heart ailments than you are to go to the hospital for what they just quote unquote vaccinated you against.
It's so absurd. And you know what? And here's the thing. The flu vaccine, right?
Right.
We've had the flu vaccine for fucking ever. And some of us have gotten it for fucking ever. I was one of them. I used to get the flu vaccine until at a certain point I said, you know what? I did the research and I said, you know what? It doesn't work. It's not it's not a good vaccine. I don't know why I'm going out of my way to get this vaccine. I don't care if it's free. I'm going out of my way to get a vaccine that doesn't
Tom,
work.
because like for free, right?
Yeah.
If you think about if free was the ultimate, And I just sat here and I said, okay, Tom, I got this thing that's free. And you're like, all right, I'm listening. And then I said, you see this guy over here? And you're like, yeah, he's like 350 pounds. Oh my God, he hasn't trimmed his nails in what looks like years. And I go, right. He's willing to, for free, shove his entire hand up your ass.
Well, that sounds great.
And you're like, well, I mean, I never turned down a free lunch, right? I mean.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, it's
yes.
free. You think you're getting a deal. But the thing is, you're like, well, I've done a lot of things for free. I've stepped in dog shit before for free. I didn't get paid for it. It was an accident. But, you know, like, it was free. So, whatever. But anyways, the flu shot, I actually did some research here. Because I stopped getting the flu vaccine some years ago. I think I've gotten it once in the last 5 years. And the only reason I got it was because everyone I knew was getting the flu. And I was like, you know what?
You talk yourself into it.
I was like, well, I'm going to go get the flu vaccine. Just because. Because who knows? Maybe it'll help. And I thought maybe
and
there's something.
And you got the flu before you went home.
No, well, surprisingly, I didn't get it that year, I don't think. My son did, though. So I must have shed my spike proteins. But I did some research, and over the last 18 years, I looked back 18 years, okay? Not like I went out of my way to do so, but I pulled up the chart here, and these are the CDC's numbers. This is the efficacy rate, and you're like, oh, wow, some of those are pretty high up there. The thing is, on the left, the percent effective doesn't go up to 100. It goes up to 70. So over the last 18 years, this is like, for those of you who still get the flu vaccine, I want to like tell you not to anymore because it's absurd. It's a stupid thing that you're doing.
You finally made it to 60% 2011.
Yeah, there was 1 year that it hit 60%, right? So like the effectiveness of the flu vaccine has broken 50% 3 times over the last 18 years, right?
Oh my God, dude. Can you imagine all the dildos?
Was the highest it ever got.
Like, could you imagine all the dildos, you know, like when it, like, all right, imagine you're in 2014.
I remember.
And you're like, you know what? Economy's pretty shit, but we're kind of wrecking it. Obama's in office. I'm pretty stoked. This is going pretty well. You know what? I want to make sure I'm safe so I could ride out this second term. I'm excited. So
I'm gonna get this vaccine, which I'm sure is very effective, because they do it every year.
Yeah, every year. Who would do the same thing over and over again and fail for 15 years? and then 19%, Tom.
Who was in charge that year? What's worse is like, you know, you've got
what happened?
You've got years like 2004 to 05, and then 2014 and 15. Like, you've got some years where they shit the bed, right?
Yeah, but Tom, how did they get off the ground? If you look at 2004 to 2006, right? Could you imagine? All right, you're in a board meeting. And they're like, all right, everybody, we got to see if we're putting any more money towards this old flu vaccine. How are we doing on effectiveness? Well, over the last 2 years, we've gone up double. Holy shit.
Doubled our efficacy.
We've doubled our effectiveness. Holy shit, are you kidding? Yes. But we went from 10% to 21%. And then you automatically just watch people jumping out of the windows of their buildings like A Certain Day in September, or maybe a M. Night Shyamalan movie called The Happening. You know, they're just jumping out of windows.
You know what happened on those days? I'll tell you what happened.
Oh, yeah, please.
2004 to 2005, and then 2005 to 2006, right? Those years where it was 10% and 21% respectively,
sure.
It was a new guy who took over.
It's always the work transition. You know, when you're taking over for someone else, they always leave you the shit year.
Yep. And,
you know what I mean?
And what they do is he had to go to his superiors. And all he did was he showed up and he said, hey, I know last year was tough, guys. I get it. I saw the data. Where are we at this year? Give me some good news before I go before the CDC and I present these numbers. And they're like, all right, we doubled our efficacy. Roll with that. And then the guy's like, got it. I'm out. And he's such a like 1980s shark, right? He used to be in marketing. He shows up and he's able to roll with that. And he ends up getting a promotion. And now that man is Dr. Fauci. He's in charge of the COVID pandemic. All right. So that's it. I that was what I needed to do because I had a picture. I had that chart. I realized it once I went and found.
He found
a
picture. Everybody. He did a lot of work.
This is but this is like to let you guys know. Like when you go and you're like, oh, it's important that I get the flu vaccine, and people are, and you're like, well, I always feel sick after I get the flu vaccine, and people are like, well, that's not the flu, that's something else, blah 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 blah. You need to get the flu vaccine, or you're gonna kill your fucking grandma or whatever. I want you to remember this.
Amazing, the language is the same, isn't it?
Yeah, because I want you to remember this. In the year 2004, it was 10% effective. Now, if you're like, well, that was a long time ago, because some of you weren't even born. I graduated high school the previous year. 2014 and 15. That was not that long ago. Like, you remember that time. It was 19%. So just go ahead and skip out on the flu vaccine.
No, dude. How about you fuck with him in this way, right? And again, I've turned my back on Trump because of the shit like he's doing now.
Yeah, the vaccine.
At least, not to mention some of the shit he did in office or whatever. But imagine this, right? Okay, hear me out on this. What you say to people is, all right, look, I'm just trying to warn you about the effectiveness here. But I will tell you this. The best president we had to switch this thing around, really turn it up a notch, was the president who went in 2016. Because if you look at the numbers from 2015 to 2016.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
They jumped by about 3 times. Now, I can't say which president that was. I can't remember.
It was, well, unfortunately, that was a campaign year, or that was the year before the campaign.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so technically that was an Obama win, but Obama he really should have bet that 19%. And then Bush fucked up. So really, Trump had a pretty good run, though, as it went with flu.
As far as averages go.
Flu vaccine efficacy. All right, so here we go. Let's get this fucking show on the road. Let's kick this chicken. Let's burn this witch. Let's fuck this chicken.
Let's do it.
What are we talking about today, Jerry? What have you got? Put you on
well, I don't know why Tom chose this, everybody. I'm going to throw this out there very quickly.
You're going to throw me under the bus immediately.
I'm throwing him under the bus.
What's going on today.
He said to me, Jer, yes, I want to talk about...
I believe I called you Jer Bear.
Jer Bear, yes. Jer Bear.
We Jer Bears.
And yes, I said Tom. Which is not only, I think, a Star Wars character, but also a drum.
You're thinking of a
Tauntaun.
Yes.
Oh, Tauntaun.
That's a different thing.
So I said, yes. And he said, I want to talk about French Lick, Indiana. And I said, where Larry Bird was born? And he said, yes, I just found out that that's where Larry Bird was born. And I think everybody needs to talk about
we need to talk about it.
Our history of Larry Bird playing on dirt basketball courts for 17 hours a day, while also working 30 hours a day, while also going to school uphill in a snowstorm in those shitty Converse shoes.
And he was vaccinated too.
Triple vaccinated. And I said, Tom, are you sure that you're talking about French Lick, Indiana, where Larry Bird was born and raised, and the heart of a nation was born? And he said, no, wait a minute. I meant Pope Lick, a goat man who lives in Kentucky. I said, all right.
It turns out it was an autocorrect issue. The whole thing.
The whole thing, it was a big misunderstanding. But we got to know more about Larry Bird together.
Yeah, it was a good experience, and I think something that we will cherish for ages, for years to come. Now, we do want to talk about the Pope Lick monster. You know how this really came about? It wasn't an autocorrect issue. It was I had run out of stuff to watch while I was at the gym, and I think something popped up about the Pope Lick monster or some cryptid or something. And I said, you know what? We haven't done an episode about a cryptid in a while. We owe it to the fan to do an episode about a cryptid or whatever. So I watched every video on YouTube about the Poplik monster. Okay, and here's something that you will learn about the creators on YouTube is that they all went to Wikipedia. Okay, because I watched all these videos, and they all said the same thing, right? For the most part, they said almost verbatim in some cases. And I today went to Wikipedia because where else are you going to go? And I wanted to make sure that I covered everything in the notes. And I saw almost verbatim what I had heard multiple times in the videos that I watched about the Poplik monster. So what we're going to do today is we're going to verbatim tell you what Wikipedia says about, like I said, I watched all these videos. I logged some hours watching these videos.
Wow.
Thinking that I was going to bring something interesting. However, when I went to Wikipedia, I found out that I wasn't bringing anything interesting. I didn't have any more information than what Wikipedia had, really. So we're going to do our best with this, and that's why I said I can't imagine it's going to take more than, whatever. The Poplik monster, a.k.a. the Goat Man. If you're in the chat, if you're listening now, if you're whatever, in 20 years you're hearing this podcast for the first time, go ahead and leave us a comment talking about whether or not you have ever heard of the Poplik monster. And for those of you who are with us right now, here's some pictures of the Poplik monster. The Poplik. Yeah, this is what he looks like. He's
very Baphomet-ish.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even I was watching some other stuff about our Oh Hell No series that we're taking a break from. And the somebody had mentioned something about Baphomet. I was reading about the Left-Hand Path, actually, and they were talking about Baphomet. But anyways, this is a part man, part goat, part sheep. Now, this is not my words, okay? This is what. Tell me what you're feeling about that right now, Jerry. What do you feel about the term? When I say part man, part goat, part sheep, what is the first thing that pops in your head?
Well, Tom, I'm wondering if this was the first thing that Al Gore used to try to scare people about climate change, and then when it failed, he went to man, bear, pig, part man, part bear, part pig.
Part man, pig, right? No,
part man, pig.
Part bear, pig.
Right.
You know
I have to admit, these are kind of cool.
So it's the Goat Man, right? Like, Goat Man seems kind of like a curious... Yeah, it sounds scary, right? A little bit scary. So Mike in Manitoba... So J-Dub said Poplik sounds like a joke about Catholics, which we made that reference. I know you and I had joked about it, saying that... no, actually, it was Jacob and I said something about how Poplik... that's the thing that the Pope... has in common with Islam is his willingness to fuck goats, and I said, but also the pedophilia. But then J-Dub says Poplik sounds like a joke about Catholics. I agree. And then Mike in Manitoba says, of course I've heard about it. I know everything. That doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. I never doubt Mike in Manitoba's knowledge of things. I just assume that he already knows, and he's just here to support us. God bless him. And then Don Trout said, is he related to Man Bear Pig?
There it is.
Here's also a artist rendition. This is a professional police sketch artist.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So if you happen to see this individual running around, that is actually the Poplik monster.
Wow.
I don't, as I was looking through stuff, some of these pictures that I found, there's another one after this that is pretty funny. But some of these ones that I found, I'm like, I have to share them just because they're so ridiculous.
Isn't it great that he looks like he's yawning?
he's singing. He's doing a...
Oh, he's singing. Oh.
He's got the...
I'm murdering children.
Ooh.
Right.
That's a ooh.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to scare... Oh, could you imagine he looks like this and he tries to scare kids, but he could only sing it? You know what I
Get
mean?
off of my train track.
No, his like he tries to like boo, you know, because he's still an animal, right? So he can only, right? So it's more of a boo, right? But he can't. It's not boo. It's boo.
That
you know.
would, truth be told, that would be pretty terrifying though, because if I was out in the middle of the night, just kind of like wandering the tracks on a train trellis, I would. That would be pretty scary, I think.
Yeah,
if I
heard that, and then I looked down from on high, on the on the train tracks, and I see a man, bear, goat, pig, sheep. You know, Romeo and Julieting me, because don't forget, we often forget. And Tom, I'm sure you could name some, whereas I'm just talking off the cuff. There are many creatures in folklore that will lure you in with a sweet sound.
Yeah, a siren, I would say.
But at the end of the day, it's to your detriment and death.
Yeah. You never want to, like, if you're in the middle, if it's like the middle of the night, it's late, it's dark, you don't want to have, like, all of a sudden you hear perhaps an ooh from, you know, a soft, lovely voice coming from the darkness, perhaps a bush. You don't want to go towards that. I don't care how beautiful it is. You should never go towards a, you know, if it's dark, if it's perhaps scary, if you have a heavy feeling. These are the things that you should take into consideration when you hear the lovely notes coming from these dark places. Now, here's the other image. I don't know. So I looked up Pope Lick monster, and as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, Legend of Pope Lick. I have no idea the context. I don't know the context of this particular image or what's going on here, but there's a hula hoop hanging from a Kiss Me booth, a 10-cent Kiss Me booth, with a man dressed as a woman.
It's very hairy.
Yeah, disgusting. And it's not even like it's not an outfit that leaves much to the imagination, right?
No.
Yeah, so this is also the Pope Lick monster, apparently. Let me go a little bit further. What struck me as weird when I said, because I thought you were laughing about something else. What struck me as weird was the part man, part sheep, part goat, or part goat, part sheep, right?
Yeah.
Part man, part goat, sheep. So I've seen a goat. I have seen a sheep. I have seen a sheep that has been sheared. Okay. I'm not setting you up for some kind of like tongue twister or anything. I'm just saying I've seen a sheep that has been sheared, and it looks a lot like a goat. Okay.
Have you seen a sheep sheared shown by the Shisha?
By M. Night Shyamalan. But they look the same, right? They look very similar. And so I thought, what? You know, I'm like, what, why would that be? Why would there be this differentiation, right? Between the goat and the sheep, part man, part goat. You could say that.
And how do you know,
that'd be it.
Right?
Or part man, part sheep, or
right,
part man, part sheep goat. Like there's some sort of weird thing going on here that I had to address. And I realized that it had to be the horns, right? You know, the horns are what separates, you know, this is somebody
beast.
Who was perhaps the person who wrote this part man, part sheep, part goat was somebody who had a good understanding of like the differences between the sheep and the goat, is what I initially thought. I'm like, okay, well maybe there's something that I don't know. Maybe it's the hooves, maybe it's the tail. I don't know. But then I realized, I'm like, well, it's got to be the horns, right? But then I looked it up, and it turns out, and I learned a lot about sheep and goats today as I was doing the research. There are,
you know, if you give them a bunch of feed, they will line up in the shape of a...
Yeah, in the shape of a syringe. Totally, you know, overlooked by anybody who might see the irony in that, or who might otherwise not see the irony, I suppose. But there are sheep with horns, and this is just for your own edification. Raka sheep, North Ronaldsy sheep, Jacob sheep, Wasanch, Goot, which sounds an awful lot like goat, further blurring these lines. The Mouflon, the Arapawa, Manx Logton. Now, these are just like random sheep that I found that naturally develop horns, right?
These are on Tom's Tinder.
Yeah. These are the ones I swiped right on all of them, right? Now there are also goats that don't have horns. Okay, so the Nigerian dwarf, the Nubian goat, La Mancha, Maltese, Alpine miniature, Oberhausali, and the Togenberg, whatever. These are all goats that don't have horns naturally. Okay, and then I also found out that if you don't want your goats to have horns, you can do a process called disbudding. Okay. Now this is going to. I know we like to.
I think if we go back to that 10-cent kissing picture, we could know where the debudding started.
Let me see what disbudding looks like.
Disbudding looks like this.
Kiss me or disbud for 10 cents. You can disbud this guy. But no, disbudding. We like to introduce to you guys some disgusting things. I know at one point we talked about. Partial birth abortion, right? We tell you about all the really disgusting things in life so that you can be like, oh, these really exist, and then you can be mad at people for doing them. I found out this process called disbudding, and it's where you cut the horns off of baby goats. And so prepare your stomachs, guys. You cut them off, and then you have to like burn them off, right, with this tool. There's a tool that you use to disbud goats. And then not only that, like if you think, oh, that's pretty terrible, also you have to shove the goat into this box that you sit on or whatever. And this person has a broken foot too, which is pretty funny to me. Like, so, and I imagine it's probably not a broken foot. It's probably gout or something, like way more embarrassing. But this disbudding process, I learned a little bit about it. It's a kind of like when you chop the tail off of a dog or you crop their ears. Like, it's a cruel process that you do just for aesthetics or whatever, or for your convenience. But also, the thing with this goat, disbudding goats, is you do it when they're, I think, 3 weeks old. Any later than that, and like the horns attached to the skull. But you do it when they're a certain age, and it actually removes that gene from the goat. So then you can breed these disbudded goats and create naturally disbudded goats, like goats that don't have the horn gene to grow. And
weird.
Which is super funny to me because we have the best and brightest minds in the world, right? Who are working on this gender affirming surgeries where they can turn a man into a woman, right? By essentially disbudding them. But it doesn't affect them on a genetic level. Whereas we are able to control the genetic level of a goat's horns and turn them into essentially a sheep that doesn't grow wool. Pretty fascinating stuff to me. Anyways, that's what I learned today when I was studying the goat man and why.
Well, Tom, I will say though,
whatever. Go ahead.
rather than controlling, the genetics down the line, instead what we do is we do what you just said, and just then they don't procreate anymore. So that's how, it's the way that our science has turned itself on ourselves. Now, what we can talk about is doing a procedure at a very, very early age to young boys to make sure that they will be psychologically scarred so deeply that no one can actually track the effects with 100% accuracy. And they will also never feel pleasure sexually in the way that they otherwise could or should.
Yeah,
like God intended.
Pills, right?
Right. And we can do that sometimes based on religious backgrounds in public in front of all of their relatives. And then their religious leaders can suck on the pee-pee.
Oh, you're talking about the Jews.
Oh, well, hey, look, man, I'm just trying to tell you
and
about things I've Suddenly the video stops working. Oh no!
I've got a thing for
Tom,
that.
I was trying to tell you something.
That's our technical difficulties screen. No, there's another one for like when Jerry, like you were just saying some racist Nazi stuff, right? Oh, we don't even have. I don't have the picture there for that anymore. Normally, it used to be. No. It used to be the Adolf Hitler shouting, like the Disney version of Adolf Hitler. Yeah, I fucked up. You know what? I went through all this folder of like temporary shit today, and I deleted all the bullcrap because I had pictures of like the pictures that would always populate as like the most recent or whatever, or the number one just based off of the file type or the file name was like Hunter Biden getting a foot job by a Taiwanese hooker. So I'm like, you know what? I need to go through this and I'll just delete all this bullshit. But I saved all the good stuff, and somehow I must have deleted the Adolf Hitler picture too.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's a shame. So let me say this too. Oh, by the way, when you do this whole thing, it's called polling or polled goats, ones that have their horns burnt off. If you breed those, there was for like decades, there was this theory this idea that if you did that, it created hermaphroditic goats or sterile goats. So people stopped doing it. They stopped breeding their polled goats because they didn't want hermaphroditic goats, and they wanted goats that could recreate or reproduce. So they stopped doing it for a while, and then it comes to find out some people kept doing it because they're like, well, I don't want horned goats. I want to be able to milk these goats, and I don't want them to headbutt me or whatever. So they kept doing it. Come to find out, they did studies, and they found out that no, it really had no effect. There was no link to polled goats creating hermaphroditic goats.
Although I will say, Tom, there is a bit of news that I'm not sure if it was in your article. I've got my papers. I've just looked it up now, and in my notes, I just found it. Did you know? Because I don't know if everybody at home knows this. Tom and I, avid sports fans. Tom, we talk about sports all the time off the air.
All the time, in fact.
Yeah, and did you know? Well, for the audience, not for Tom's sake, secretly. I'm talking to the audience here. Did you know that the curse of the Cubbies was because a guy brought his goat to the game and they kicked him out? And so it was the curse of the goat that kept them from winning a championship for over 50 years or whatever it is. Did you know? I mean, did everybody here know that? Well, here's what I was going to say. Turns out, I've seen pictures. Now, putting them with what you've shown us, that was a hermaphroditic goat. That was
product of polled breeding.
Yeah. And that goat, that was why he was not allowed in, or she. I don't remember which.
Well, both.
Right. Well, the identities are the problem. It's very difficult to get the goat to nail one down on the day. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't even bother anymore because the goats, unfortunately, they can't tell us the pronouns, so we just go with Zim and Zer. That was the original. The goat was the original Zim Zer. Okay, so this damn goat man, he lives under a train trestle. That I learned a lot while I was researching this because I didn't know a lot of these things. I didn't know about polled goats. I didn't know the difference between goats and sheep other than horns, which there are.
You had a whole education here today.
I did. I learned quite a bit. But he lives under a trestle, a train trestle that intersects and crosses over the Pope Lick Creek in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, I knew where the Pope Lick monster lives because he is the one cryptid that I seek to kill. I seek to destroy the Pope Lick monster. And
it's so close to you.
I know. It's right here. I mean, the Loveland frog is not too far from me. So I could really kill the Loveland frog. Choose not to. But the Poplick monster is, I think, anything that has the word monster in it, first and foremost, should be destroyed. Second of all, I think anything goat, you know how I feel about goats. I've always said that goats are the farm animal that demons would most likely inhabit just to take a break if they just wanted to chill out, if they wanted to possess
too have
something.
seen the Vivitch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then you get it. Black Phillip.
I absolutely get it. Yes.
So that's my opinion on the matter. I think that probably the Goat Man is more demonic than anything. And I know we're going to get a little bit more into this, but the trestle, I had to learn what a trestle really was. Now I know about like trestle roofs, but as far as a trestle bridge, if you don't know what a trestle bridge is, I'm going to give you a little lesson here. This is kind of the overhang. This is what a trestle bridge looks like. A railroad trestle bridge looks just like this. This is, in fact, an older picture here that's coming up on you. And then you've got... Oh, and here's a good one. This is kind of to give you an idea, like, point of view. You're walking under the trestle, and maybe there's a train going overhead. You know, be careful, because there's going to be some shaking. Here's an overhead view of really where the Poplick monster lives, because you can see there's a road that goes under it. Right to the bottom left of this picture, you can't see it in the picture, but there's a creek that runs. That's a Poplick Creek. We have not made enough poop lick jokes for this episode, I don't think. But here's the Poplick.
Excuse me, specifically shitty poop lick jokes.
Yes. Now, this is the creek. This is supposedly where he no shit lives, right? Speaking of poop and no shit.
Right.
Here's the creek, but then also here's, like I said, here's the road, the overhead view. Now that's going to be important. You're going to need to know about that for the next part, because there are, let me see here. There are ways that he kills you. Okay. For instance, one, as you're walking across the, let me see, I'll pull up a picture again here so you can kind of see what... a lot of people walk across this trestle bridge, and as you know, as it's an active train track, it's still... There are heavy freight trains that come through here. People like to walk this train track, and this thing is, you know, it's 742 feet long. It's got a 90-foot drop at its highest point. And you know, there's no overhang, there's no side platforms, there's nowhere. If a train starts coming around that bend and you're in the middle of that train track, you're looking at like Stand By Me. Okay,
I was gonna say I've been waiting. Yes, Stand By Me.
I apologize, I didn't mean to take that away from you, but that's exactly what this situation is. And a lot of people have dropped and tried to hang on to the ties for the time it takes for the train to pass overhead, but unfortunately, Jay Coop, he came back. Apparently, he just shows up trying to get first place, and then he ends up leaving or whatever.
Son of a bitch!
But this guy, the Pope Lick, what he'll do is he'll lure you onto the train tracks, and his eyes at the end of the train track will lure you towards the end. So you start walking towards it, and then come to find out those luring eyes are actually headlights from the train. Also, he'll use hypnosis in the same way to get you onto the tracks. Furthermore, he uses mimicry. He uses like the voice of your friends, or perhaps your dead grandma who died because you didn't get the COVID vaccination. You know, he'll use her voice and say, you know, Jerry, why didn't you wear your mask? Why didn't you keep 6 feet from people at Home Depot? Like, that's...
You should be wearing your mask right now, even though you're by yourself near a train.
You're on a Zoom call. You should be wearing your mask, because people are kind of upset about that, and they need people to wear masks over teleconference.
Jerry, I know this seems weird, but it's me, your dead grandma. I have a mask over here for you. If you just come over here, you could wear a mask all the ride home. by yourself with none of your friends.
You can wear a mask with me forever. Here. Well, all of a sudden she starts to sound like Mickey Mouse. Oh, hiya, Jerry.
You're gonna die soon. Is it from the mask, the COVID, or this train?
Look out! And then it's whoo. It turns out it was a train the whole time. See, that's where the confusion was.
Oh my goodness.
These things happen. You know, first thing you think.
You'd think for a monster who was so good at this, you know what I mean? Like if they were so good at voices, I mean, they would pay so much, you know? I mean, imagine you're this guy, the Pope-Lick monster.
Are you sending out an email right now where you're trying to hire the Pope-Lick monster?
Look, here's what I'm saying. I'm going to throw a cut and paste email out there. And what I'm getting at here is fill in this parenthetical with the job description that you are seeking to find. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. Are you in need of a mask? Anyway. So
that's a terrible email.
Dude,
I forgot that. I'd be furious.
Dude, if we just hire this guy, right? Because I did a little research myself, and I hope I'm not blowing anything, Tom. But one of the folklore was that it was a farmer. Are you going to go into this?
I was, but go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I don't want to.
Please do.
Okay. Well, because one of the folklores is that it's a farmer who sold his soul to the devil so he could grow a lot of food and stuff. Now, I'm not going to go over the rest of it because that's not the point, right? But here's what I'm trying to say. This guy was so thirsty for recognition that he sold his soul to the devil for potato growing. You know what I'm saying? If we could hire this guy and go, you know what? You just mimic my dead grandma to a T, and I've never even met you. Let me ask you a question. Could you do Patrick Stewart? You know what I mean? And then, could you do Robin Williams doing something else? You know? And then you give him a few tests, and yes, if you're talking in person, could you possibly be hit by a train while you're talking? Yes. You have to be very careful. But the point I'm trying to make is if we hire this guy and we give him a little bit of direction, maybe more people don't die.
So you just solved something that can I say this? I want to go through the dead.
Say whatever, please say.
Let's without even talking about where he came from. Let's talk about who he's killed. Okay, and these are the confirmed kills by the Pope-Lick monster. Okay, 1985, John K. List was struck by a Southern Railroad Company train only 30 feet from the end of the trestle. He was the first recorded death of the Pope-Lick monster. 1986, the following year, 19-year-old David Wayne Bryant, a guy who's apparently from Boston because he's got 3 names, jumped from the trestle to dodge a train and sustained serious injuries. He apparently died of those injuries the following year. That's the thing about 1980s American healthcare is it's like 2020s Canadian healthcare. Sorry, Mike, that joke was written for you. 1988, 17-year-old Jack Charles Baum II, a rich person from Boston because he's an esquire, he's a junior, hit by a train. 1992, 19-year-old Grady tried to hang from the railroad tie, but he lost his grip and fell 90 feet. 1994, 35-year-old James Ratterman overturned his ATV on the trestle and got hit by a train. 2000, 19-year-old Nicholas Jewell fell to his death from the trestle when the train was coming. 2016, 26-year-old Raquel Bain from Ohio got hit by a train. Her boyfriend survived by hanging from the side. He was like the exception because he did it. He was like prepared. This dude prepared for this encounter.
I was going to say, I'm wondering if he also hired.
He ended up hiring the Pope-Lick monster to kill his girlfriend.
He really didn't like his girlfriend, but couldn't figure out a way to break up with him. You know what I mean? By the way, to Mike, I see his comment. That's true. If we give the Pope-Lick monster, who is known for hypnosis, the capability to make the voices on all our children's favorite cartoons, everybody may die. That's true. I thought I was, giving this guy an out.
To have that blood on your hands, Jerry? You'd be responsible for every person's kid dying because they watched a cartoon with the Pope-Lick monster voicing every character?
Well, can I just say, I am middle management, and we here at Disney would do everything that we can to make sure.
Put somebody's foot in your mouth.
Put somebody's foot in my mouth and videotape all the children before they died. Does that answer the question?
I think it did. I don't know if that was. I don't know if there was.
Oh my God, the video's not. Hold on.
Oh, it's blurring. We lost him. We lost Jerry. He's somewhere with a child's foot in his mouth. So this this guy who killed his girlfriend, he was prepared for this event. Now, I was thinking personally, because I intend to kill the goat man, right? The Poplik monster. So I think part of my training regiment is since the trestle is 742 feet long and 90 feet high, or there's a 90-foot drop at the center. In order to train to be prepared to kill the goat man, I'm thinking worst case scenario. I need to be able to do a 742 foot sprint, okay, on tires, because you're talking railroad ties on a trestle. You got to be able to, go from one to the next.
This isn't just you running on concrete. This is some.
This is some legit. Like, you got to do 742 feet sprint on tires. Okay, the dash, the full dash. Now you've got that. You've got the 5 to 7 minute dead hang. Okay, where you have to hang on to the railroad tie. You have to be able to hang on, because how long does it take for a train to cross that trestle from engine to caboose? 5 to 7 minutes average. You need to be able to do that. So, and then also you need to have the ability, because God willing, I end up at a point on the trestle where I can climb down, right? If I can master a 90-foot rock climb, those ones that you find, the whatevers, where they've got like the artificial
the little
rock
cup
climbs.
thing kind of,
If I can find one of those 90 foot, if I can master that, I think that's important. I think that's going to be how I ultimately defeat the goat man. And also, I fully intend to kill him with a gun. I don't intend to like go toe to toe. And here's the other thing that I realized this week, as I've been working out quite a bit lately. I realized, because you need to have a goal. Okay. If your goal to quitting smoking, here's the frustrating thing about quitting smoking, is when you quit smoking, your light at the end of the tunnel is death, right? Because you have to, like, you just know, okay, I'm just not going to smoke anymore. Well, what good do I have to look forward to? At what point is that reward going to be fulfilled in a meaningful way? Oh, well, when you die, that's when you're done. You no longer.
Well, yeah, but Tom, also, I'm sorry. First of all,
go ahead, please.
Every road ends at death, unless you take the COVID vaccine, because then you live forever. I don't know if you knew that. But secondly,
that's not true. I listened to Ted Nugent.
The other thing is, no, wait. The other thing is, Tom, when you quit smoking, you can look forward to gaining at least 25 to 50 pounds. And all those wonderful foods will lead you to the beatus before death.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know how you left this out.
I quit smoking. I quit smoking, and then I quit. I quit smoking by vaping, and then I quit vaping. Okay.
Me too, actually.
I went through that whole thing, and now the issue is all I have to look forward to is a life interrupted by the health conditions that are caused by smoking. Now, that's hard to look forward to, because you're really looking forward to a death in which you are not dying of a smoking related illness, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Which maybe you still end up dying of a smoking related illness, who knows? But anyways, I was thinking about this. You got to have a goal for working out, right? Now, for some, it might be to be the next Batman, which is a good goal. Another one might be to one day complete a 5K and be able to complete, to be able to run 5Ks with your kids, or be able to exercise with your kids, or keep up, or play football, or whatever. People have different goals. I realize that and those are good goals. Those are fine if you want to play sports with your kids or whatever, or you want to have fun and all that bullshit. But that's not interesting to me, right?
I want to differentiate real quick. Playing with your kids is one thing. 5K That just means you've lost all your friends because you've become as obnoxious as a vegan at that point.
Yeah,
so
nobody
go ahead.
runs 5Ks
Sorry.
for fun. But my goal is, and I think this should be everybody's goal, okay? When you, just in general, you should never stop working out until you are confident that you could beat the ass of every single person you know. Okay? Like, you want to be the top dog of all the people that you know. That's gotta be the goal. And unfortunately, I know Superfan. Okay, I know Superfan, and I know he could beat my ass, like in just about anything, right? And especially a physical altercation. I don't challenge the fact that he probably that he could beat my ass. The goal to working out, I think, is that you should work out until you are confident that you could beat the ass of every single person you know. Because then at that point, people have to cheat to defeat you. And at that point, you win. You still win because you're like, well, yeah, he killed me with a gun. You know, but like, but that's why you got to be good at guns too. Or, yeah, he killed me, but by stabbing me in the back. Well, then you're like, well, then I got to be more vigilant. And maybe you're a little bit more vigilant. Eventually, you become this apex predator, right? So where you can beat anybody to death with your mitts. You can shoot anybody from a great distance or even from close quarters. You could stab somebody. You could sneak up on somebody. Stealth, that's an important skill. These are all skills that ultimately, at a certain point, you should be unkillable. Okay? And that's the goal. This working out part, this is just part of it. Okay? Is you have to be able to beat the ass of everybody in a fair fight or whatever that you know. Okay. Once you can do that, super. You should have already been also working on marksmanship, stealth, any other number of things, intellect, because you got to be smart sometimes to kill people. You got to know the trigger points for, like, if you want to kill somebody, right? You got to know. So that's intellect based. So you should always be working on becoming a more efficient killer. Okay. And your physical fitness, by doing that, by seeking to be the toughest guy that you know and the most deadly physically powerful person that you know, you're also becoming physically fit, which is a health conscious decision. But anyways, that is why I was talking about you have to do these certain tasks in order to kill the goat man. This is one of the reasons why I'm working out to the amount that I am. But then also 2019, 15-year-old Savannah Bright was hit by a train and she was killed. Her parents... Now here's where it gets interesting. Her friend that was with her survived. From what I understand, the friend fell and was like transported to the hospital but recovered. So she either fell the 90 feet or they were pretty close to the end. I don't know how she did it, but she survived. But
Tom, I know how it happened.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah. So she's with her friend, right? And then she says, "Holy shit, is that the goat man?" And the friend goes, "What?" And she and she knocked her down and then lassoed herself down, but she only had a 30-foot rope. So then her friend gets run over. She hears the bones being crushed, the blood's dripping on her face. And she goes, "All right, I am adequately traumatized for people to believe I didn't just purposefully
murder my friend.
Now I will blame it on
the goat man." Yep. Yeah. The goat man.
That's how it went.
I don't know. They didn't identify this other individual because she was under 15 or she was under 18, so they couldn't identify her. But like now I'm kind of curious. I want to know, like, I'm going to be that like relentless reporter who goes after the leads. I'm like, I don't think that this was just an accident. I think perhaps this other individual and I go to like the Journal and I have them, "Hey, who is the other kid?" And they're like, "Oh, I can't tell you."
Dude.
And and then I do this. I'm like, "Hey, who was the other kid?"
Dude, could you imagine? It's your first story, potentially your last. I'm already doing the movie, right? It's Tom's first story, and it might be his last. He thinks he's just investigating, a sketchy murder of a local teenager by going after the girl that leads him to a demonic entity face to face for answers, right? Because look, if the girl won't answer, right? Or she gives you all the teenage half-assed answers. I don't know. I don't remember. Why you
This is not like Twitter at
so,
all.
This is so boring, right? And you want to die. So you figure, all right, I'm at my wit's end. I can't take any more of these shitty answers from this punk kid. But you know what I can do? I could take on the devil. And you go seeking out the goatman, not to kill him, but to just get confirmation that this bitch did it.
I go to him for the scoop.
That's it. And then he reveals himself and he puts himself on the stand because no one would believe you. I think it's an incredible story.
It's a Pulitzer for sure.
Dude, that's like John Grisham meets Stephen King.
It's a James Patterson. You know what it is? It's a James Patterson, but then like with, you know, I don't know, John Jacobson or whatever. You know, like the little name that's actually the author, but then James Patterson goes through it and corrects it, and it's just like, no, this would be better if we fucking had
James Patterson just goes through using spell check.
Yeah, and you know who else would be great in this? Alex Cross. Let's throw Alex Cross in this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got for that.
Fantastic.
You know where we haven't talked about where this damned goatman comes from? Now, do you want to explain where the goatman comes from a little bit more in depth, and can you make it last a minute so I can pee? Or
well, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask you to do the same because but I can stretch. You go pee. I'll figure it out.
Here's what we'll do. You do the one about the farmer selling his soul, and then I'll do the other one.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
okay.
I'll let you know when I'm back.
Okay. All right, guys. So I watched one video in preparation for this because he told me about it, and the entire time I thought he was trying to talk shit about the Pope in some way, that there was going to be a Pope joke, a smoking a pole joke, something, and it never came. And it turned out that Popelick was a real fucking thing, and I had to look it up today. So then I watched probably one of the same videos that Tom did. It was by this guy, a carpetbagger, huge mutton chops, big old nerdy glasses, and the 5 minutes I could stand to watch it because he was kind of like a little off-putting, and I got distracted. He was basically like, yeah, so this farmer just wanted to grow great potatoes, great onions, and he sold his soul to the devil. And then he became this great, I think it was that he became a great farmer, but then he wanted to, like, it wasn't just potatoes and shit. He also had goats and sheep, and he wanted to have the best in show at all the local carnivals and quaint Midwestern stuff. And then the devil was like, oh, you think that's all there is? You just give me your soul and you get to have the best sheep and onions? No, sir. And then he turned the successful farmer into a big D&B goat sheep man. So even though it's part sheep, part goat, it's got huge D&B here. You saw it in some of Tom's pictures. It was emphasized. I don't know if by Tom specifically, he wanted to really, really emphasize the huge D&B on this animal, this monster. But that was the point. Yes, you will lose your farm and your soul and end up living under a bridge, but you'll have a big old D&B.
What does D&B stand for?
Oh, dick and balls.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, it checks out. From what I understand,
I'm going to go pee now. You tell the other
goatman
story.
Has a large D&B. Now, the other option was that, and this is a less interesting one, truth be told. I should have taken this one and let Jerry take the other one. But there was a circus that was at the time, now this is way back when, that was being transported by train, and near where that trestle is, the train derailed, crashed, and in this circus was a freak show in which a part man, part goat, part sheep, the goat man, who would ultimately become the Poplik monster, was released. But because of his abusive nature, or because of the abusive nature of the ringleader and of his handlers, he vowed revenge when he was released. He was the only survivor of this crash. He vowed revenge against just everyone in general, because everybody else was dead. All the people who had wronged him were killed in the crash. But then this goat man vowed revenge against humanity, as I would assume, given his target victim audience. And he oftentimes is caught with a dull axe that he uses to kill people. He will jump down from the trestle and land on top of cars as they pass by underneath on the road that runs parallel to the creek. He will jump down and land on cars and attack people that way. Now, this is how he exacts his revenge. So, as a circus freak, Jerry, we were just finishing up on the discussion about the circus freak. Those are the two main reasons, or the main excuses for the Poplik monster. You talked about how both he is a reincarnated man-goat sheep, and then also perhaps maybe it was because he made a deal with the devil to have better crops. And then killed all his goats.
I believe the term is "freak on a leash."
Oh, okay.
It was coined by the epidemiologist, Jonathan Davis.
Yeah. That's the guy. What is
That's the guy.
Jonathan Davis.
I can't believe I pulled that name out of my ass, by the way.
Well, you know what? That's the thing about those of us who grew up in the 90s is, or who came of age in the 90s, therein or about, is we know who Korn is, and we know who the lead singer of Korn was, and we can imagine them in their Adidas tracksuits and shit. So that's
also looking up this goat man and going, you know what? I have a different theory. And looking into it. There
was an episode of something. Was it South Park where Jonathan, where Korn showed up and they were? It was
the Scooby-Doo Halloween episode, and Korn showed up in their van, and they solved the murder. Remember?
I'm still a huge fan of Mike Tyson's mysteries. I think
Tyson's
mysteries.
Can I tell you
something? One of the greatest mystery shows ever. Based parodying it.
As far as a vehicle for presumed reformed rapists go, I'll tell you, it's the best show I can think of, and that's I seriously, I actually did really like it. I mean, Norm Macdonald as a pigeon is all you need to tell me, and I'm in.
Yeah.
You know.
I think when his line about when he's like, yeah, well, I thought she turned you into a pigeon. He's like, yeah, well, kind of feel like even if she hadn't, I'd have turned into a pigeon anyways.
Right.
All right, what do we have? Did you have anything else you needed to say about this goat man licked Pope monster? Jerry,
no, I just want to say I'm very thrilled that this local monster that you want to go toe to toe with was the cryptid we broke the ice with here, with my era, I guess you could say.
The Jerry era? The Jera?
Yeah, the Jera, yeah. The Jock Jams Jera. I'm thrilled that this was how we broke the old cherry here, or whatever you would say.
We popped the cherry.
This is a new Jera.
There's so many jokes. If we would have come prepared, we probably wouldn't have had as many good ones as we did. The Jerry Cherry, the Jera, there's a lot of pretty terrible ones.
Jer Bear. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
By the way, Jer Bear is also a cryptid found.
When I said Jer Bear earlier, I said I hope that's not like his wife's pet name for him.
No, it's one of those
too
names
easy.
that,
it's a low-hanging fruit, really.
yes, to be truthful, it is a name that my friends just like you did. It went from, oh, this is a way to get under his skin, or one of those bust your chops kind of things, and then it turned into, oh, that's how I'm gonna address you when I call you after not speaking to you for 5 years, just because things fall by the wayside. You know how it goes, life and family, and then you send a call and you go, oh, Jared Bear, hey, it's so and so. That's what it's turned into.
Here's the thing for you guys, and Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't going to say anything about them. I ended on a sad note for those of you who are. I got to end it on a sad note. I found out today that a very good friend of mine died, on December 31st, and he's a friend of mine from when I was in recruiting, when I was in Appleton, and he was a recruiter, and he and I became tight. I'll tell you the story about him real quick. I was already an assistant center commander up in Green Bay, and my first sergeant said, "Hey, whatever you did with Kyle, who was a friend of mine from the station I was in, so whatever you did with him, do it with this other guy," and Nathan is his name, and I said okay, and so I went and I hung out with him, and I kind of like taught him just basic recruiter shit or whatever, like how you can have fun with recruiting, how it doesn't have to be a terrible fucking thing, and how it's actually very easy if you just kind of like find your whatever it is your niche is and just teach them all the shit that they don't teach at school. And so I went and I hung out with this dude, and I was like, listen, here's how it goes. We rode around, we goofed off, I showed him recruiting, and that was that. I became kind of like, I was like a pseudo company trainer or whatever for several people. He was one of them, and anyways, he and I ended up leaving shortly after that, within like a year or so, but he and I were tight while I was there. Like, we did a lot of company training. We'd pal around whenever, because we all lived in the same area, and we all lived in the community. We didn't live on post, so it wasn't bullshit like army forced mandatory fun shit. So we all would pal around anyways, and so I ended up moving. I took over a station down in Ohio, and then he went on to Michigan, I believe. And he converted to recruiting at my recommendation. I didn't recommend for many people to convert to recruiting permanently, and because it's a shit job. And but I said certain people I think would make good station commanders, and which is a different job than recruiting. It's a job. Recruiting is part of being a station commander, but being a leader in recruiting is totally different than recruiting. And which he wasn't particularly good at. He wasn't very good at recruiting at the time. But I said, you know what? I said, I know that you're a good leader. I know that you're a good caretaker of soldiers. I said, I think that you should, because, and also he was in an MOS where he was like facing the chopping block just because of promotion rates and shit. And I said, I would recommend you go in recruiting, just because once you convert and they put you in a station commander job, you are no longer a recruiter, you become a manager. And I know you'd make a good manager. And I said, you know the shit, you're just not very good at it. But I was like, you know it, and you know how to teach it. And he said, okay, yeah. So he converted, he took over a station in Michigan. And then he, at one point, had to go to senior leader course at, he and his family came down to Kentucky. We live right next to the Creation Museum, if you've ever heard of it. I know a lot of people all over the world have heard of this Creation Museum. It's actually like 2 miles away from me. Okay. I live right down the road from it, right down a back road from it. We go there just because there's good Pokestops there. And then also we live right, about 40 minutes away from this the Noah's Ark recreation. They recreated Noah's Ark to scale based off of scripture, using all the same schematics and everything that you would find in Genesis. This same company, so this family, my friend's family, he came down, he had a wife and 3 daughters, I think, at the time. And they came down to see this Ark and to go to the Creation Museum. And I saw it on Facebook. He didn't know where exactly I lived. He knew I lived kind of in the tri-state area, but he didn't know. And I guess his wife had posted something on Facebook about it saying, hey, we're going to the Creation Museum. And I said, you stupid motherfucker. I was like, you realize I live like a block away from this thing. And I said, we're going to meet up. We got to meet up for dinner or something. So I said, we'll figure something out. And so we ended up meeting up for dinner, and his family and my family, we all went out to eat. And then that night they came over, we goofed off for a while. They went on their merry way. A couple months later, he got called down for orders to go to Senior Leader Course, which was at Fort Knox. And he said, hey, I'm here at Fort Knox. I said, do you want to do something while I'm here? I was like, hey, you're more than welcome to come up here, whatever, or hang out. And so he did. He came up. We spent the day goofing off or whatever. And then he said, all right, well, I'm going to head back down to Fort Knox. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. And I said, no, let's go park the Gov over at the post office, because you have to park at a government institution. And so let's go park the Gov over there, and then you can stay at my house or whatever. We got the extra bed, and we got or the couch or wherever you want to sleep. So he did, and we hung out. We had a great time. He went on, did his Senior Leaders Course, came back. Come to find out, he got stationed at Fort Knox. We had yet to hang out. He became an instructor for recruiting. And we had yet to hang out since he had moved down there and he got stationed there. And come to find out, today I was on my Facebook. I hadn't talked, and this is what pisses me off. And this always pisses me off every time this happens, because it's not the first time that this happened, where I've lost a friend from that I hadn't talked to in some time. And I hadn't talked to him in a little while. It had been a couple months at least. And he, are you calling? Or what was that beeping noise? But I hadn't talked to him. And I looked on Facebook today while I was waiting to get my ID card from the National Guard base or whatever. I was sitting there and I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw something that said a tribute to Nathan Hunter. And when I saw that, I thought, what a weird thing to post. Like, this person, I don't know, but they just, because they had tagged him in it, they said, I don't often do these tributes to so-and-so. I thought maybe it was like just he was saying something nice about this dude because he had maybe done a favor for him, and he's like, hey, I just want to say something nice about this guy, kind of like a glowing endorsement is kind of how it was written. And then as I'm reading through it, at the end of it, it said something about you'll be missed. And I'm like, well, where is he going? Was he going overseas? Like I was trying to figure out, it still hadn't processed in my head. And then I thought, well, maybe he died. But that can't be. Like, he's my age, right? We're the same age. And so I look at his Facebook, and I start seeing some shit about, like, you'll be missed, we loved you, da-da-da-da. And then I see a message from his mother talking about what had happened. Apparently, he had, on December 22nd, terrible timing, because, like I said, he has very young kids, right before Christmas, too. He had just fallen over. He had fallen out. And no one knew what it was. His wife took him to the hospital, and they found a tumor in his brain. Very aggressive, very quick forming, quick developing tumor. And it took him out in like 8 days. From the time that he fell out, when he passed out, to the time that he died on December 31st. It took him out that quick. And like I had, it was one of those things, like here's my advice to everybody, okay? Because I make this mistake every fucking time this happens. And I look back and I regret it every time. Call your friends, the people who you care about, the people who you think are actually cool. I don't have many friends. I know you guys probably find that hard to believe. As charming, as kind as I am, I don't have many friends. The people I consider friends are few and far between, and are people who, I might go months at a time without talking to them, like this guy, Nathan Hunter. I might go months at a time, and then just at one point he'll text me and he'll say, hey man, can I borrow you for something? Can I ask a favor? Can you do me a solid and write me this letter of recommendation? Yeah, of course. I'll jam it out right now, and I'll just drop everything I'm doing and go do it. That's kind of the relationships I have with a few people. Okay. And I take that for granted. And I look back every time. This is, like I said, this is not the first time that this has happened. But every time that it happens, I kick myself for not touching base. Just something as simple as a, hey, just checking in, just wanted to say what's up. Just hope things are great with you. Happy Halloween, Merry Christmas, whatever holiday it is, someone you haven't talked to in a while, shoot them a text. Just say, hey, happy Thanksgiving. Fucking, I don't know. Or, hey, I know it's your birthday coming up. I just wanted to say, hey, in case I don't get a hold of you at that time or whatever, just wanted to wish you happy birthday or whatever. Just something. Just send these people, the people that matter in your life, shoot them a text. You have the technology. This isn't a time where you have to send a fucking telegraph or whatever. You have the means to do so. And believe me, tomorrow morning, because this is something that happened to me today, tomorrow morning I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write at least shoot a text at a bare minimum. If not call, if not write an email, if not something, if not go visit all the people who I find, that I hold dear. I am going to reach out and make contact with them just to say hi and just to let them know that, hey man, I value your friendship. I love you, whatever the situation is. I recommend that you do the same thing. And I know this is, probably falls on some deaf ears. And I know it probably, some of you don't feel like, hey, this probably doesn't apply to me. I'm a young man or whatever. I'm a young man. I'm 36 years old. If you think you're a young man and you think that this sort of shit doesn't affect you, I was 23 when I lost my best friend to suicide. And it was something that I could have totally prevented. Granted, this is a different situation. I'm a little bit older. I'm 36 or whatever. This is, at this point in my life, I recognize there are going to be some people who have some fluke things or whatever that happen. But I do recommend that those of you who are young and who think you are invincible and think that it can't happen to you, reach out to the people that you love and care about and let them know, hey man, I value you and I just wanted to say hey. Or even if you just want to say hey, that goes a long way. I like receiving a text every once in a while from. I received a text from somebody I hadn't heard from in 20 years the other day, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, literally 2 days ago, he texted me and just to say what's up. Actually, he said, hey, do you have any air duster? Because he and I used to huff air duster when we were in Iraq together. But and it was just a joke, and it was just a way to reach out and break the ice and say what's up on Facebook. So I recommend that you do that. You don't have to. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I will let you know that it hurt me today when I found out that a very good friend of mine, a friend few and far between of mine, died. And I didn't even know. I wouldn't have even known if not for Facebook, a fucking social media that I despise. If not for Facebook, I would not have known probably that this dude died until, I don't know. I don't know when I would have heard. But yeah, man, right. That's enough of me browbeating you guys and telling you to call your fucking friends and family members. Same goes for your dads. If you got your dads, if you got your moms or whatever, call your moms and dads, call your grandmas, call your grandpas, call them because, you never know. Mm-hmm. That's enough about Pope Lick, poop dick, all that stuff. And then going into a very serious subject matter. Jerry, do you have anything that you want to show before we close out?
No. I would, I got the same old, you can hang out with me on Telegram, and I can send you tons of stuff at no thanks. You could see me there. And you could also, I guess, call or text me. That's cool. I'll call and text you back. We could be friends. And, yeah. Anyway, Tom, I'm sorry that happened. I did not know that until just now.
So I dropped it on you. Yeah, I'm not the guy who, I save it for the show and make everyone feel guilty in the chat. No, I'm not the guy who hops on Facebook and is like, oh, I've got fucking shit going on, but I don't want to go into it or whatever. Or, yeah. I don't want to use somebody else's tragedy as like a pity party or whatever. Like some people
those are tough. Yeah.
People on Facebook who are always like, oh, well, I fucking don't want to get into it, but I'm going through a tough one if you could. And then as soon as somebody's like, what's wrong? They're like, oh, mind your own fucking business or whatever. I don't ever want to be that guy, but this is a lesson. It was a life lesson that I had to learn today, and I am passing the savings on to you. And then also I want to show off this shirt that I got. I found it at the bargain bins. And it reminds, this is some old school You Had Me at Bigfoot stuff, because we used to always make James play Freebird on the show. But I found this shirt with by the way, that too. I'm getting into falconing. We're starting to build or put together the muse and all that shit. Big exciting things are going to be happening for You Had Me at Bigfoot this year. I'm excited that we're heading into it together as a team and as friends and as whatever. I don't know how to end this anymore. After school special and shit. But thank you all for joining us tonight, and we thank you for sticking it out, the 5 of you who are still here. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe, all that bullshit. Follow Jerry on Telegram, because that's where I get all my juicy, meaty stuff here. Like he said, no thanks. And then also you can find the show on there. You had specifically, it's me. It ends up being me. Like, you're stuck with me. If you go to You Had Me at Bigfoot on Telegram, and if you go on Instagram, You Had Me Podcast, you can find us there. The Discord as well. If you hop on the Discord, that's where we spend most of our time. We sit on there and shit all over King Cracker, and whenever he tells me that I'm wrong about treating dogs and caring for dogs and dog behavior and shit. But anyways, no, thank you all for tuning in, sticking out, and letting me to vent with you at the end of this. Don't forget to check us out on Redbubble. All the information, I'll make sure to post it up here in a second. If nothing else, we will see you all next week.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.